In the late 16th century, more than 100 English men, women, and children set out to build a new life on the distant shores of the New World. They carried with them dreams of freedom, ambition, and a future for their children, but those dreams vanished into the Carolina wilderness, leaving behind only a single, cryptic word carved into a tree. No bodies, no signs of a struggle, no trace of where they had gone. For more than 400 years, the disappearance of the Roanoke Colony, often called the Lost Colony, has haunted historians, archaeologists, and storytellers alike. It is a mystery that refuses to die. How does an entire community, over 100 people, simply disappear from history? Were they killed, assimilated, or did they choose to vanish on their own? Tonight, we're going deep into one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. This is the story of the colony that vanished without a trace, the birth of a dream. The year was 1584. England, under Queen Elizabeth I, was hungry for expansion. Spain's empire stretched across the Americas, and England's most ambitious minds believed it was time to stake their own claim. One of those men was Sir Walter Raleigh, a court favorite and adventurer who received a royal charter to explore and colonize the New World. His dream, to establish England's first permanent settlement in North America, a base from which to challenge Spanish power and open new trade routes. Raleigh's explorers landed on a chain of barrier islands off the coast of what is now North Carolina. The land was lush, the waters teeming with fish, and the indigenous tribes seemed, at first, willing to trade. They named the region Virginia, in honor of the Virgin Queen Elizabeth. The first attempt at colonization in 1585, led by Ralph Lane, ended in disaster. Food shortages, conflicts with local tribes, and a lack of supplies forced the settlers to abandon the fort and return to England with Sir Francis Drake. But Raleigh was undeterred. A second expedition would be different, larger, better prepared, and this time, families would go. This would be a true colony, not just a military outpost. In 1587, a group of about 115 settlers, men, women, and children, departed England under the leadership of John White, an artist and experienced explorer. Among them was his daughter, Eleanor Dare, who would soon give birth to the first English child born in the New World, Virginia Dare. Life in the colony, a new beginning at the edge of the world. When the settlers of 1587 finally stepped ashore on Roanoke Island, they believed they were building the future of England in the New World. The land was remote, bordered by thick forests and shifting marshes, but it promised new life, and perhaps, new beginnings. They immediately began repairing an old fort left behind by the previous expedition and constructed houses for shelter. John White, their governor, quickly worked to establish peaceful relations with the native tribes, understanding that survival depended on it. But even from the start, there were signs of trouble. Relations with the local Secotnan and Croatan tribes were strained. The English were not the first strangers to arrive on these shores. Earlier expeditions had already caused tension and mistrust. Food supplies were running dangerously low, and attempts to trade sometimes turned hostile. The settlers had expected reinforcements and provisions to follow from England. But as weeks turned into months, those ships never came. Then, in August 1587, amid the uncertainty and growing fear, a symbol of hope was born. Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the New World, entered the world, a sign, many believed, that the colony's future was destined for greatness. But even the birth of a child couldn't change the colony's grim reality. Without food, weapons, or support, their situation was growing desperate. Ship Part 4, The Vanishing, the return to an empty settlement. In late summer of 1587, with conditions deteriorating, the colonists made a fateful decision. They asked Governor John White to return to England and plead for supplies. White was reluctant. His own daughter and granddaughter were among those left behind, but he knew there was no other choice. He promised to return quickly. It would not be weeks, nor even months, but 3 long years before he would see Roanoke again. The reason? War. England and Spain were locked in the Anglo-Spanish conflict, and every ship was needed to defend the homeland. White's pleas for a relief mission were delayed again and again. Finally, in August 1590, he secured passage back across the Atlantic. As his ship neared Roanoke Island, he must have imagined the reunion, his daughter running to greet him, the colony thriving, perhaps even growing. But what he found was nothing like that. The settlement was empty, houses stood abandoned, tools and personal belongings lay scattered as if the inhabitants had simply walked away. There were no signs of battle, no graves, no bodies, only one clue, a single word carved into a wooden post. Investigations and clues, searching for the lost colony. The word CROATOAN was the name of a nearby island, home to a friendly tribe that had long traded with the English. White took it as a sign, the colonists must have moved there. But a violent storm was approaching, and his ship's captain refused to risk the voyage. White never set foot on CROATOAN Island. He never found his family, and he never saw the colonists again. In the centuries since, countless searches have followed. Archaeologists have scoured the islands, rivers, and forests of coastal North Carolina. Part 6. Leading Theories. What really happened to the lost colony? For more than 4 centuries, the disappearance of the Roanoke colonists has remained one of history's most haunting puzzles. With no definitive evidence, experts have pieced together a tapestry of theories, some grounded in archaeology, others built on fragments of oral tradition, and a few drifting into the realm of legend. Each theory attempts to answer the same haunting question: how does a community of over 100 people simply disappear? Theory 1. Assimilation with native tribes. One of the most widely accepted theories is also the simplest. The colonists integrated with local indigenous peoples, most likely the CROATOAN or related Algonquian-speaking tribes. The clue carved into the post, CROATOAN, seems to point directly to this idea. The colonists, facing starvation and isolation, may have turned to their closest allies for survival. The CROATOAN were known to be friendly to the English and had established trade relationships with them before White left. Theory 3. Migration and relocation. Another possibility is that the colonists abandoned Roanoke voluntarily, seeking a more suitable home inland. Roanoke Island was never an ideal location. The soil was poor, food was scarce, and access to fresh water was difficult. With no help from England, the settlers may have decided to move inland toward the Chesapeake Bay. Theory 4. Starvation, disease, and collapse. Some historians believe the mystery is far less dramatic than it appears. Settlers, abandoned and isolated, may have simply succumbed to starvation, disease, or exposure. With food scarce and tensions with local tribes rising, the colony might have fragmented, small groups scattering into the forests in search of sustenance. Over time, these groups could have perished separately, leaving no single site or trace behind. The lack of bodies or mass graves makes this theory hard to prove, but in the brutal reality of early colonial life, such fates were tragically common. Theory 5. A combination of fates. The most likely explanation may be that there is no single explanation at all. The colony's disappearance could have been the result of several overlapping events. Some colonists may have joined the CROATOAN, others could have journeyed inland, a few might have perished in conflict or succumbed to disease. Over time, their identities may have dissolved, not in one dramatic moment, but through a series of small, quiet disappearances. What we call the lost colony may not be lost at all. It may simply be hidden in plain sight, woven into the history and bloodlines of the people who lived on this land long before Europeans arrived. One of the most significant breakthroughs came in the early 2010s. While studying an original map drawn by John White, researchers noticed a hidden patch, a deliberate covering over part of the map near the Chowan River, about 50 miles inland. Beneath it was a faint symbol, a fort icon. This location, now known as Site X, became a key target for excavation. There, archaeologists discovered fragments of Elizabethan-era pottery, firearm pieces, and copper artifacts, all strongly linked to the Roanoke colonists. These findings suggest that at least a portion of the colony may have moved inland and continued their lives, possibly for years, away from the site where they were originally left. History is full of battles, kings, empires, and inventions, but few stories linger in the imagination like that of Roanoke. Because unlike most historical mysteries, this one is not about power or conquest. It's about people. Ordinary families, children, dream. They left their homeland behind and risked everything to build a new life, only to disappear without a trace. Perhaps they found refuge among the CROATOAN. Perhaps they marched inland and carved out a new existence. Until we uncover the final piece of the puzzle, Roanoke will remain more than a mystery. It will remain a mirror, reflecting our endless desire to know the stories that history tried to forget.